Hi, and thanks for joining me for this flip of the Crafter's Companion Box Kit number 4. It's their Create a Card box, and I saw these kits on sale at Joann's online, and I have never used them before, and in fact, I really am not that familiar with the Crafter's Companion or Gemini products in general, but you get so much in these kits that, especially since it was on sale, seemed like such good value for money. And so I ordered a couple, and then since then I've purchased even more of these boxes because they're really fantastic. It seems like they use their boxes as a way to kind of give you a little bit of an introduction of their different product lines and different styles of dies and embossing folders and stamps and whatnot that they create. And I think it's kind of a fun, neat way to get a little taste of each of their different styles of products. So for this box in particular, it's their Create a Card style of dies. And the way that the die works is that it essentially kind of cuts into your card, and so it won't cut, a complete piece out of your cardstock. The patterns cut into it. So I'm more familiar with the tonic line of dies, and they call them verso dies. I don't know if that's a general term or if that's a tonic term, but the die that comes in this kit die cuts out that beautiful sort of ornate square aperture that is in pink on this card, which is going to be my flat card. And what I did was I used that to die cut out of white, and I used that white cardstock as a stencil. And so I'm just playing with some of my homemade I guess shimmer drops, and I used pink and pushed that through my stencil, which I used the Create a Card die to create. And then you saw me just do some smushing with the shimmer drops, and I just used some acetate to smush that on so that I could get like a more controlled smushing. I can just put it where I want it, smush it multiple times to get the texture that I want. And now I'm using my homemade shimmer mist to mist this interior portion of the card. I did go back and just mist everything just to give it a more consistent look because I had some pretty stark lines of shimmer mist, so I did go back and mist everything afterwards. But this is I very rarely do like a 100% flat card, but this does turn out to be um, completely flat because I'm working directly on the card base. And what's really nice about these kits that I really appreciate and I think is a little unique is that they always come with card bases and matching envelopes, and they come with various sized and sometimes sort of already has the fancy folds in them. And that way, like if you've never done an easel card, for example, they actually give you card bases that already have the score line and fold and the extra panel that sits on top of your easel and a strip that becomes the stopper for your easel card. So it's really nice that they kind of introduce you to these different styles of card bases and different sizes and shapes. I generally just make A2 size cards, but in these kits, and I think in the UK maybe it's more common to have larger sized cards, but in these kits, I've noticed they'll have like 5x5 cards, 5x7 cards, and some of them even include box templates. Some of the kits include box templates, so it's really fun. I think that it's definitely expanding sort of my repertoire in terms of card making. So here I'll kind of show you how I shaped the flowers that came in the kit. These dies are included, and they there are, I guess, three different flower dies. Two of them are similarly shaped in different sizes, and then there's one that's kind of like a daisy shape, but I actually use those more like for to represent the stamen of my flowers. And all I'm doing is using my ball stylus, and from the back of the flower, I just sort of trace around the edge of the flower, and then I flip it over, and on the front, I cup it to bring the petals upwards. And the effect that you get is because you do the shaping from the backside, the edges, the outer edges of your flower sort of curve downwards a little bit. And then when you cup from the front of the flower, it brings all the petals upwards. So as the petals are smaller and smaller, or closer and closer to the top of the flower, I'll actually cup more aggressively to bring it more and more inwards. And that's generally how I shape my flowers. These flower dies were a little bit more interesting because they actually have some cut lines through the petals, which was kind of neat. Just adds a little bit extra detail and interest. And one thing that I found was that you don't need too many layers of the flower die cuts either. A lot of times when I'm doing flower shaping like this, my quote recipe for the flower is usually 6 die cuts in 2 to 3 different sizes, but here I just use 2 large and 1 small, and then I used the smallest one as my stamens. So not a lot of die cuts, which I thought was kind of cool. I did lose the footage for my layered card, so what I'm working on right now is actually my interactive card. However, my layered card is a little bit of a combination of a couple of the other cards that I made using this kit. So the technique is very similar. This is also going to be an easel card, and as I mentioned, you do get the easel card base already pre-scored and everything for you. And on both my layered card and this, my interactive card, I used the Create a Card die to just cut out that decorative frame and aperture. And I did it on an angle so that you get a nice diamond shape. And what I really like about it is that to decorate those corners, it's a really efficient use of paper because you just cut some squares, a little bit less than 3" by 3" square piece of paper, and then you cut that in half on the diagonal, and you get 2 pieces to decorate your corners with. So you just need 2 of those squares, and you're done. Whereas if you use the Create a Card oriented as a square, the decorative panel for that would need to actually get cut out of, a 6 by 6, sheet of pattern paper. So, so I really like the look of the diagonal orientation of that aperture, but it also happens to be a really economical use of the pretty pattern paper. In this particular kit, there were a couple things that seem a little bit different about this kit compared to some of the other kits that I've seen and some of the ones that I've purchased. So this kit, the pattern paper, all of the papers are unique. You don't get any repeats. I think you still get quantity-wise roughly the same as you would get in others, but how they've decided to do the repeat is they have, I forget how many unique designs, but then they repeat that in a different colorway. So there are actually 3 colorways, like a pink, a purple and this sort of teal and orange combination. And each unique design of their pattern paper, you get that in each of the three colorways. So it's kind of interesting, and all of the papers are so pretty. I just wish I had repeats of them because I hate cutting into paper that I only have the one sheet of, but they are really nice. So I did forget to show you how I attach this little butterfly to my spinner card for this interactive component here. So that's why I wanted to just pop back in and show you this. The butterfly there is a stamp that is included in the box kit, but there is not a die to cut it out, so I did have to fussy cut that. The other unique thing about this box kit is that it seems like in most, maybe all, I don't know, most of the other kits that I've seen anyways, include not just the pattern paper, but also coordinating colored cardstock, both in 8x8 size, because that's what is sort of the size of the box that all of this comes in. And what's strange about this kit is that they do include some solid color cardstock, but it's in these little 4x4 squares. I think the intention was that the squares are meant to be behind the aperture of the Create a Card die, but they're like a smidge smaller than they need to be to kind of fully cover the back of that aperture or the back of that frame. So it just seems like an odd choice not to just include full 8x8 sheets of solid color cardstock, because they're so they can't be that expensive, and then you can use them however you want, as opposed to just as a backing for your Create a Card aperture. But so anywhere that you see solid color cardstock on my cards, that's actually from my stash, not from the box kit. So here, what I'm creating is a pop-up wiper card, and I guess the next thing that's kind of unique about this card kit is that it did come with a couple of different styles of card bases, which, again, like I said, I really appreciate that, because then I get to learn some new styles of cards, and even if it's not anything new to me, it's still pretty convenient to already have it all cut to size and folded, and you already have all the pieces and stuff. In this case, I'm using what I think that they would typically use for like a shadow box, and I did alter it because for this style of wiper card, I didn't need the second set of folds that their card base had. So if you look at the cards in front of you, there are those folds on the right side. Well, there was a matching set of folds on the left side, and I just cut that off. By the way, those two pink strips that you see along those edges, that's just red line tape. Whenever I do interactive or pop-up cards, I do like to use strong adhesive, just to make sure that everything is like really secure, because if there's gonna be like a lot of sort of playing around with the card, I like to use thick cardstock, strong adhesive, just to make everything a little bit more sturdy. And this butterfly I stamped onto acetate using StazOn, and I'm just doing a quick coloring with alcohol marker. I'm using my chameleon pen, but I'm not doing any of the color blending because, for one, it's such a small image, and second, I don't even think you could really color blend effectively on acetate anyways. So I'm not gonna even bother trying. And then this acetate does come in the box kit, Mostly because, they do expect you to be using their creator card as an aperture window. And so I think they're anticipating that you'll want to back that with acetate like I've done for this card. And one thing I will say about their acetate, it is thick. It's really good acetate. You can see this little piece that my butterfly is on. It's not bending over, flopping over at all. It's standing nice and straight, and so I really like the acetate that they've included in this kit. And in fact, what I use to back the aperture with is actually acetate from my stash, because the acetate I have is flimsier. Like if you were to hold it up, it would just start, kind of falling over on its own weight. And that's not the case with the acetate that the Crafter's Companion acetate that's included in the kit. So I'm being a little precious about using their acetate because it's really nice for applications like this where you definitely want that to stand up nice and sturdy and straight. It would also be really good for the pop-up boxes where you've got, flowers or whatever coming out of a box, and sometimes you want things to look like they're floating in midair, or you just want to give some additional height to some of your elements. So it's perfect for that too. The stamp sets are really nice that are included, and you get a really good assortment of, and I think this is generally the case as well. You get a really good assortment of sentiments as well as images, and it seems like butterflies are like a favorite among the Crafter's Companion stamp sets, because pretty much all of the boxes that I've used so far may have, I think, a butterfly included on them. I'm not complaining because I do love butterflies, so I think that they are really a great touch to add to any card, really. So, again, the solid cardstock here is out of my stash, and I use sort of a combination of cardstock from different brands. So I use Recollections sometimes. Sometimes I use, I really like Tonic's, the Craft Perfect cardstock, but sometimes I don't like the textured weave that they have, just because I sometimes prefer the look of a smooth cardstock. So I don't always, and even though they say that the opposite side of the texture is smooth, you can still see a little bit of that pattern. So it's not like 100% smooth. It's smoother than the textured side, but it's not like a smooth. So my sentiments, I've been flagging the ends of my sentiment more often these days, and I've been backing them with solid, a piece of solid cardstock, but doing it sort of wonky as opposed to 100%, perfect. And I've really been liking the look of that lately, and I've been doing it a lot. I don't think it's always having a wonky setting like that is always kind of effective. I guess it just depends on the style card that you're creating. But I figured everything else about this card was just so neat and squared and tidy that having a little bit of something on that wonky edge would just help it to stand out a little bit better. And also the butterfly kind of flies in on an angle too. So so I did think that it would be more interesting to make it a little bit off kilter rather than have it all squared up nice and perfect. So here's a recap of the 4 cards that I made, and you'll see the layered card, the finished layered card, which I lost the footage of when I assembled it. But here's my flat card, and this one's 100% flat, direct on the card base. And I think these cards are 5x5. And the creator card die is about 4x4. So here's that layered card, and I just have a couple more layers for the corners, and And the stopper is made using one of the strips that they provide in the kit. So, and the flower I made very similar to how I made the blue ones on my interactive card that's coming up. And and you can also see the three different colorways. So purple was one. This one is sort of their teal and orange, which is a color combination that I don't often use, but it's quite effective. And so I think it's one that I'll probably try to incorporate a little bit more into my card making. I'm not always the biggest fan of orange, but it really does look good in their pattern papers. And then this is the pink colorway. So all of these different patterns, you'll see them in a pink, a purple, and a teal. So I really love how this turned out and how the butterfly really just does look like it's flying in, and the wings also look a little translucent because while it's colored in, it's still on that acetate, so it still has a little bit of that translucency. Well, I hope that you enjoyed these cards. Thank you for joining me. Please consider subscribing if you do like my videos. And until my next video, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Thanks. Bye.